This podcast is brought to you by the Association for Coaching, the world's leading international professional body which is advancing coaching in business and society worldwide. I'm your host, Rob Lawrence, and in this new series we are celebrating 20 years of the Association for Coaching by reflecting upon the journey so far. I meet with founders, coaches, leaders and members who contributed to the AC's journey to learn more about their experiences with coaching as part of our global community. Together we explore the impact that coaching has had on the world so far, what we need to be thinking about for the future to create more positive change whilst tackling some of the world's biggest challenges. Each week, you'll hear how coaches are working and collaborating as a global community together to advance coaching worldwide. Hello and welcome to another episode celebrating 20 years of the Association for Coaching. With me today, I have Angela Dunbar, Adrian Green and Jane Upton. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Lovely to be here.
I'd love to begin by giving our listener a little bit of an insight as to who we have in our conversation today. I'd be really grateful to get an insight of who you are, where you are, and how you show up in the world of coaching today. Maybe I could begin with you, Angela.
Okay, thanks, Rob. So where am I? I'll start there. I'm in Devon. Been here for 5 years now. I love it. How do I show up as a coach? I work with a kind of process and mindset of coaching, which is clean. So clean coaching, which basically means keeping as much of me out of my coaching conversations as possible so that there's more space for the coachee, really. I was a training consultant previous to going into coaching. The quick and short story is I was running my own business as a training consultant too. And I did quite serious damage to my spine, which meant it was really difficult to stand on my feet all day. I don't think that's the only reason I went into coaching, but it was certainly something that nudged me towards doing one-to-one work. And that was, 20 odd years ago.
Fabulous. Thank you, Angela. And how about you, Adrian?
Well, where am I? Well, I'm in lovely Rickmansworth. A bit grey, I think, today. For those who don't know me, I'm on the UK regional leadership team, and I also run a company called Pressure Point. That's a people and an organisational development company. And gosh, let's answer how did I get into coaching? I mean, I was at the start of the AC, so back in around 2000, 2001. I set up the business, which initially was a wellbeing business. So my parallel life was as an athlete, as well as coming from the corporate world. And it was always about the ethos of helping people be their best and show up to be their best in their work environment, I guess, and home environment, because they're inextricably linked, I guess, right? So, or intrinsically linked is the word I'm looking for. So I was a physical therapist and a sports masseur. That's what I kind of initially trained as, and having and doing corporate work and doing having a private practice in St Catherine's Dock. Actually, the amount of times people just needed to talk. They needed to talk and have someone to listen to them. And I discovered coaching when, in fact, when my patient said, "Oh, you should really become a coach." Because it's just listening, answering simple questions for people to express and come to some of their own conclusions. And I think I thought I was pretty good at the physical therapy, but actually I think people really loved the mental clarity that they would leave with. And that's when I discovered coaching, when I got myself trained, joined the AC, and haven't looked back since, really. And so how do I show up? I think I show up in many ways. Authentic as myself, but depends where the coachee is at, I guess. And so I think I will show up for them in a way I think will help them the best in that particular moment. So that could be energized, it could be humorous, it could be just there for them. So it depends, or it could be challenging, a variety of ways, whatever is required.
That's great. Thanks, Adrian. Yeah, it's lovely. And how about you, Jane?
Well, hello. Where am I? Well, I'm actually in Spain. I live just south of Barcelona, and I've been here for 29 years. So I clearly like it here. So I got into coaching originally in the early 1990s when I was corporate. I was working for what's now Diageo. And 4 of us were trained as super coaches with a view to really introducing the concept into the leadership style of the company. And I really liked it. So a few years later, I left the corporate world. I'd been in HR. That's my original career. I was an HR director. And I decided to set up on my own, which in Spain was quite interesting, actually, because nobody knew what coaching was. It was pretty new in the UK. But certainly in Spain, that was a challenge because it was confused with therapy. Perhaps there wasn't such a culture of professional development as there is now. So I built my practice over time. But my work is very much in the leadership space. I'm a leadership coach. I'm part of Pricester, which is an international coaching organisation. And really, I work with one-to-one senior leaders, leadership teams. And I've also trained coaches. I was a tutor on the Henley programme for some years. And I joined the AC in 2015. I'd been previously a member of another organisation, but there was a nice group here in Spain, and I decided I'd like to be part of that. So that's how I got into coaching.
That's great. Thanks, Jane. I'd love to speak to all of you and learn more from each of you about your own coaching journey. But before we get into that, I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you got involved with the AC itself. Jane, you mentioned you've been with the AC for around about 5 years now. So perhaps we could start with you.
Yes, I mean, I got involved with them because I went to an event that the AC here in Spain had put on in Madrid. And I enjoyed the community. I had previously been part of the WABC, which is a very good professional organisation, but because it's Canadian-based, there wasn't much going on in Europe. And I just decided I wanted to have that community as part of my coaching practice, because coaching can be quite isolated as an occupation, really. And so I liked the style of the AC. I found it very approachable, some good quality standards, but also quite a lot of flexibility and openness into different approaches. And that's how I got involved. And very soon I became part of the team in Spain, and I still am part of that. And I'm also an assessor for accreditation.
And just before we move to Adrian, I'm curious to learn a little bit more about something you just mentioned there in terms of perhaps how the AC enables you to support people from a regional point of view in your role as a coach.
Yes, I think coaching has had different pathways through different countries, and it's much newer really in Spain than it is in some other countries. And I think what the AC has allowed us to do is to offer people here access to materials, courses, accreditation. We really encourage supervision, which is not yet as established here as it is in some other places. A big emphasis on CPD. And I think it's a very useful vehicle for supporting the quality of coaching, which of course is absolutely, I think it's one of my passionate things about coaching. It needs to be good quality, and I think the AC can allow us to support coaches in their own development and professionalism.
That's great. Thank you, Jane. Adrian and Angela, you've been part of the AC's journey almost from the very beginning. So, Adrian, maybe if I could start with you in terms of how you got involved with the AC and how, through your involvement as part of the regional leadership team, you've been able to support the AC, but also how has the AC supported you in terms of the work that you've been doing as a coach?
Yeah, lovely. Well, I trained, at the turn of the century, we sound an awfully long time ago, at the Centre for Coaching under the wonderful eyes of Professor Stephen Palmer and also Gladina Mamman. And it was through that journey is how I was introduced to the AC as founder member, and that likewise, it's interesting what Jane was saying. Yeah, it's really an approachable organisation. Even back then, it wasn't long before I bumped into the enigmatic Catherine. Initially, actually, I kind of lent in to the organisation, and then as I've developed my business, kind of lent out again. But actually, I've always kind of been on the peripheral, and it's been quite nice to lean back in because I see the amount of support it offers. But not just about that. It's really about, even what Jane was saying, that mission to ensure the quality and the professionalism of the industry as it grows and flourishes from what was a bit of a Wild West. So for sure, the ethos behind and the drive to uphold the standards is a really good thing to be part of. I'm not, a single coach practice. I've got a business with a number of people employed and associated with this, and we work with corporates. 99% of what we do is with corporates. I would say the AC has certainly been a window for us to have some standard tools, but certainly some cutting edge tools and practices that without the AC wouldn't have been able to be real differentiators in my business. So I think that's been a really powerful thing for me and some of the tools that we do. So if ever Catherine goes, Adrian, you should really consider this thing, I'm there. And it's always added huge value to certainly to what my business offers.
Angela, I believe you've got the title of Honorary Life Fellow. Is that right with the AC?
I think that's right, yes.
Something along those lines, yeah. So how did you first get involved with the AC? Can you remember those early days?
Yeah, well, I've been reflecting on it as we've been chatting, that I was in the early stages of my development as a coach. I'd already been in business for a number of years, and I'd probably done quite a bit of informal coaching as part of my training consultancy. But once I made the decision to concentrate all my efforts on one-to-one coaching, I wanted to get in with what was happening in the world of coaching and become as professional as I could and understand as much as I could as quickly as I could. And I can remember phoning all the professional associations that were around at the time. The AC were in their infancy, as I was. And so when I phoned, I spoke to a real person who had a chat with me about what the AC stood for. I just felt an affinity. This was an organisation that I felt from that original conversation, I can't remember who it was with, I felt an affinity and thought the AC is the organisation I want to affiliate myself with. The culture of the AC, as it was then, and I expect probably still is a bit now, I knew everybody, not all the members, but I certainly knew all the volunteers and all the people that were behind the scenes in the AC. And every time I came up with a suggestion, well, why don't we try this? And why doesn't the AC do that? Catherine would say, well, that's a really good idea, Angela. Tell me, how are you going to make that happen? And so I very quickly found myself juggling all kinds of volunteer roles, and AC for probably 5 years of my life was the biggest thing that I did. It took up probably more than half of my working life, which, was perhaps a little bit too much after a while, but it was a little bit addictive because in the early stages of the AC, it was great to be part of something that you could see was growing. So I got involved in co-coaching, setting up co-coaching around the country, then setting up more formal events. I was head of professional forums for a while, and a lot of kind of setting up processes, which I have to say never was really something that ever floated my boat. But again, when you could see how it was making a difference and you could see the work you were putting in immediately coming into fruition and being actioned, that was what I loved. Was it didn't kind of, an idea didn't just go into a black box never to be spoken about again. Things happened. You had to make them happen. So yeah, that's what I remember about my early days. At one stage I was on the committee probably for a couple of years, so very, very hands-on. And in the end, I stepped back from a lot of things. I see this as the AC grew, I grew as a coach too. And as my experience grew and my business grew, I had perhaps less time to devote to some of these volunteer roles. But I stayed involved. I was kind of part of the supervision accreditation scheme for a number of years. And that felt it was growing with me because I had become a coaching supervisor. So it felt appropriate and useful for me to be involved in that. And now I can't believe I don't do anything behind the scenes with the AC. I think every now and again I get pulled on in to do some kind of project or something. So every now and again I'm still involved. And I suppose to me the AC feels a bit like family. You know, I've grown up, I've gone through my teenage years, and actually I'm probably getting to the stage of my career that I'm looking towards retirement even, you know, to slow down and even stop one day. But to me, the AC doesn't just feel like an organisation that I belong to, it feels like a family I'm part of.
That's lovely. Thanks for that, Angela. You mentioned co-coaching there, and I appreciate our listener may be new to coaching. Could you give us a little insight as to what coaching actually is?
Yeah, co-coaching is a really brilliant activity for not just new coaches, but coaches that are long in the tooth and been doing it for years. And simply, it's about coaches getting together to practice the art and the science of coaching with each other. And generally, you need probably at least 3 people to make co-coaching work. You need 2 alternate roles, but the role fulfilled of the coach, the coachee, but also a really important observer position. And so what the co-coaching forums that we set up around the country were for different people to host co-coaching sessions. I hosted one in my front room for a number of years, and we would be able to squeeze about 14 people in there at a push. And we would practice, so we'd go off into our groups and we'd have a kind of circle of practicing coaching with each other. And it was just such an amazing opportunity to try something out yourself as a coach, to have some coaching. I always felt the observer role was the most interesting of all, because you got to see so many different styles of coaching, different ways to coach that you hadn't experienced before. And, you know, we did some fun things over the years. I can remember doing speed coaching and, having just 5 minutes to do some coaching with someone, and to see how even with 5 minutes, everything that you typically see in a coaching session happened in the 5 minutes. So yeah, great times. I'm still part of various co-coaching forums. I just haven't been able to find the time to go to any recently. But yes, the AC still run co-coaching forums. Members can attend as many as they like for free. And I've always still feel today, it's just such a wonderful member benefit. It's fantastic.
Angela, absolutely. I think this is one of the most amazing things. And the organisation does lots of things, right? Amazing things. But yeah, I often, people became coaches and they had this desire to become a coach, and they didn't quite put both feet in, so they stayed at work, and then they've lost that opportunity to be in a safe space to practice it. And I think coaching, that ability to have, as Angela said, surrounded by people who support you, people who are new, people who are midweight, people who are really, really experienced, and to do this kind of triad thing is a wonderful thing. It's wonderful. I think one of the things I want to shout about and scream to the world about is my role of storyteller. It's a wonderful thing. I think it's a really wonderful thing.
That's great. Thanks, Adrian. How about you, Jane? Is co-coaching a thing in Spain?
No, we haven't run co-coaching here, but we used to have a coaching café, which allowed people just to turn up to a call and really ask questions, seek advice. It wasn't supervision. It was much more informal than that. And they'd share experiences amongst themselves and with us, obviously, and we would too. It was just a forum for exploring coaching, whatever turned up on the day. We didn't have particular topics about it. And that worked really well. People found that very helpful.
Yeah, that sort of leads me into another question I was eager to ask each of you. In terms of the evolution of coaching in the time that you've been coaching, and if I could stay with you, Jane, I'm curious as to, in your experience in Spain, I recognise that you mentioned a couple of differences from your viewpoint in terms of perhaps what's happening in the UK and other parts of the world in contrast to where you are now in Spain. So I'm curious, co-coaching is one of the things that we just touched upon there. Are there other opportunities and possibilities as you see it from where you are for coaching to evolve, perhaps in ways that or towards ways that coaching is showing up in other parts of the globe?
I think it's evolving everywhere, and certainly things here have changed a lot since I've been. I coach all over the world anyway, but I think generally coaching is evolving to become much broader in its approach. I think there are different paths. Let me sort of backtrack a little bit. I hope that there is less sort of following a very rigid model towards coach, certainly in the area of coaching that I'm involved with, so leadership coaching, executive coaching, and a much broader understanding of some of the dynamics that go into the leadership space, and therefore having a broader range of tools, deeper training and development for coaches so that they can really adapt what they do according to the more complex needs of their clients. And I think that's coming through here as much as it is everywhere else. And I think it's more nuanced than perhaps it used to be.
I've got to agree with that, Jane. No, absolutely. That space of leadership coaching is complex, and you do need this wide range of tools, 100%, to do that. So,
thank you, Adrian. I'm pleased you agree.
Yeah, 100%.
I was curious, Adrian, actually just building on that, in terms of your experience in the last 20 years or so, how you've seen coaching evolve. If you can cast your mind to what it looked like back then compared to how it looks today. But I'm also curious, how do you feel coaching has sort of changed the world, if you like, from your experience too, so far?
No. Well, that's lovely. That's it's 2 parts to that question, I think. I can remember them. Like part one, gosh, when I started, and I'm sure it's the same for Angela and Jane, the models were relatively basic. Coaching was trying to find its groove in a world that was already dominated by counselling and psychotherapy, mentoring maybe, and coaching, certainly in the UK, certainly in Europe, was more of the emerging thing. But it kind of, this wild west had started up because of the way it kind of just organically grew. People didn't know what it was. People who were doing it weren't necessarily doing it in any, if I could put it in inverted commas, correct way. But again, going back to the point Jane mentioned, and Angela has also kind of alluded to it too, human beings are complex things. To help them nudge themselves forward, you do need a wide range of things in your toolkit, which actually I always think starts just with yourself. So the clean coaching concept that Angela was mentioning earlier is a very important thing, actually. Taking yourself out of the conversation, the coaching space. So there's more space for the coachee. Right down to using, complex assessments for people to accelerate their understanding of themselves and how they deal with situations. And once we get into that kind of leadership space, the complexity of the world they face, be it the organisational complexity, the economic space environment they're in, or the complex system that they are operating within, as well as their own self-awareness, requires a whole range of things that will be executed at various times depending on what the need of the coachee and the situation is. And it is required of the excellence of the coach to know what to do, what approach to use at the right time, if there's such a thing as a right time. Right. So it's evolved, and it will continue to evolve, I think, because human beings are complex things. And we're just dealing with those within the space of normality, if that makes sense, not without certainly without any disorders, for sure. So it's evolving, and there's still a long way for it to evolve. And in terms of the impact, though, I would say coaching having a phenomenal impact. Right, I was at a conference yesterday. It was a national sales conference yesterday, because some of what we do are with sales leaders, etc. But it was great to have a coach stand up and be one of the key speakers, just talk about the impact coaching had on very, very senior leaders in very, very large organisations, and that does have a trickle-down effect. I think coaching can have a huge impact in the way that one of the clips played yesterday was of a coachee who was the leader of an international bank, and how wonderful it was to see this leader talk about the importance of trust in his organisation and creating safe spaces in his place for organisation, in his organisation for people to flourish. And that was one of his missions he wanted to set to accomplish within this large banking organisation. Just phenomenal. And him saying, well, that was through his coaching conversations that emerged as something that was really important in his business, as opposed to, focusing on financial spreadsheets. So great. That's the kind of impact it can have. From that to the impact that a company might decide to focus on its corporate and social responsibility as a key aspect. And that might have just, again, through coaching conversations with senior leaders can come to the fore.
Yeah, that's a great example. Thanks for sharing that with us, Adrian. And you mentioned complexity earlier, and you remind me there actually that how increasingly complex the world has become in the last 20 years and how coaching has had to evolve with that. So, Angela, if I may come to you, I'm curious as to your experience of how coaching has evolved and how it's had to kind of ride the wave of complexity and change in an ever-changing world in the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, when I hear questions like this, I always feel, well, I don't really know all of it. I only know from my own narrow perspective. So I can report from what I've noticed. And one thing I sure have noticed is that generally people know what a coach is nowadays. Whereas I can remember when I first started out as a coach and was just chatting to someone in a pub or a restaurant, and they said, oh, what do you do? And I said, oh, I run a coaching business. And he said, what, do you drive the bus yourself?
How about that? Yeah.
True story. And so nowadays, I think generally people know when you talk about coaching, what a coach is, they know what that term means. So that's big, it's a profession that's grown up. I think the other change that I've seen, and I suppose I see it mostly now as a supervisor and the coaches I work with, and I was thinking that probably most of the coaches I work with have also been around for a long time. I don't have many coaches at the moment who are quite new, so I don't know if it's a general thing or it's just how I'm seeing things. But kind of concurring with what Jane was saying about less need to follow a rigid model or mindset and a greater eclecticism in terms of being able to pull on different approaches. I certainly see that in the coaches that I work with, and I think that's great. The other thing I think I'm seeing is that going back 20 years, coaching was all about making a difference for an individual person or an individual organisation, but it was quite kind of focused on a single thing, if you see what I mean. Now I see, and this is where I think the complexity comes in, I see that a lot is happening through the AC and through other coaching organisations as well, that coaches are becoming more connected to some of these complexities in terms of what's happening in the world, the impact of global warming, war, recession, these things that are happening and affecting all of us. I see coaches as kind of not just about working with for the benefit of an individual that they're contracted to work for, but also holding some sense of personal responsibility to make a difference to the wider world. Yeah, I think that's a big generalism, but I think I can see that happening more and more. And maybe that's not just a reflection on coaches. Maybe that's a reflection on all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the themes you mentioned there are certainly some of the themes that have come up in this series already in terms of the awareness of what a coach is and what coaching is nowadays. And it seems a lot more commonplace for people to have coach, particularly in leadership spaces, and more so in other circles nowadays. I hear what you're saying there, Angela, and I think actually it's interesting you were saying that it was almost from your own specific perspective, but I think you are reflecting some of the bigger themes that are emerging from the conversations in this series so far. If I can stick with you for a moment, Angela, there, in terms of what we were just talking about there, and this theme of sort of complexity and community and connection, I suppose, that you were talking about there, coaches being more connected. What do you see as perhaps some of the challenges for coaching today and going forward? Obviously, you've got a lot of experience in the world of coaching, but it's not going to be without its challenges. So I'm curious as to what you're seeing.
I guess the challenges that I'm seeing at the moment in this post-COVID world, where everyone's kind of got on board with Zoom and other kind of online technology, we've all kind of now comfortable with that. But I think still I work with a lot of coaches who are, how do I make this work when I'm not in the same room as a person? So I think that continues to be a question. But also now how that's impacting on the organisations they're working for, with the managers and the leaders that they're coaching now have more of a hybrid working schedule, and what that might mean for the organisations, and then what that means for their coaching. So it's kind of like how these the kind of the themes of the world, the challenges around the changing ways that organisations are having to communicate and work with their workforce when they're not all in the same place anymore. I hear that a lot from coaches in terms of how they manage that and how best they can help their clients. So that's the one that popped into my head immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the same old challenges as well. There's the new ones, but I don't think the old ones have gone away. I think coaches still deal with the same kinds of issues. Where are the boundaries around what I'm offering? How do I avoid rescuing? How do I manage my time? So I think some of the same challenges that have always existed are still there.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that, Angela. Actually, I think it's useful to recognise the challenges that still need to be tackled. I suppose in some respects we tackle them in one way, but then the world evolves and they sort of re-emerge and we have to tackle them in a different way. And you touched upon, hybrid working, and of course this transition or transformation that we've all been through in the last few years of now being online and not coaching one-to-one and in person, and being able to meet each other at events. And of course, all of that's changed for us and brought a number of challenges in as well. Jane, I'm curious to sort of bring the question over to you as well, where you see, Angela mentioned some of the challenges that still exist in coaching today, but also some of the new ones that have emerged over recent years. I'm curious as to your perspective in terms of what we need to be thinking about and what sort of challenges do we need to keep tackling as coaches and as a coaching community globally.
Yes, I'd like to pick up on the point of the hybrid working, because I've always done a lot of remote coaching. Years ago, it was telephone, which worked very well. The benefit now, of course, is that the platforms are really much more stable. And so I find the quality of online coaching much better than it used to be. And I'm finding clients like it. In fact, I've got some local clients who now say, oh, no, can we just do it online, because then I can work from home and it's easier, it's more private, somehow they enjoy it. So I think it does offer opportunities for us, although I know I've got colleagues who are initially perhaps a little reticent about it. And of course, we actually mirror what's going on in our clients as well. So they're struggling with the hybrid, what works, when does it work and when does it not work? That's coming up quite a lot for me at the moment in my coaching. And when do they need to get back face to face? In terms of the challenges for coaching in general, I think almost that we're victims of our own success in a way. And there's a commoditization of coaching, which is happening in some areas. And I think that can quite easily undermine the value of coaching. And that feeds back particularly, again, to reinforcing the importance of professionalism, standards, really providing value for clients. So that's something I'm always very aware of. And the ability of clients to differentiate between different coaches and what they bring. I'm also seeing something that I think we as coaches can do more in terms of team coaching, particularly as there are pressures on budgets, lots of changes in organisations, faster perhaps than, I mean, it's always faster than ever before, but it is really accelerating at the moment again. And the power of team coaching can really have a big impact on organisations, the teams themselves, and the impacts of those teams further down the organisation. So that's something I see developing quite a lot.
That's lovely. Thanks, Jane. And Adrian, passing the baton over to you in terms of these challenges.
Thank you. Yeah, great answers, Angela and Jane. I concur with it all, right? Look, the cost of living is an interesting thing about the Hideth, right? And I'm interested to see how it impacts our worlds. So those who specialise in the personal coach, life coaching space, who go to market to the consumer out there directly, it could be hard for them when people are making this choice, right? Making this choice, and therefore the value, people go from being value based to being very much about price based, and that's not a really great place to go. But sometimes the conditions force people and organisations to be that way. So that could be interesting if on that a branch of the coaching world, when people are saying, well, I need to pay for the heating rather than some personal development for myself or some personal support. So that's going to be interesting to see how that hits that community. Those people who have business coaches, helping them run businesses, entrepreneurs, again, likewise, similar situation. It might be one of the things they look to cut when they see their electricity bill for their business quadruple in a quarter. So it's interesting to see how that goes, and obviously from the coaching community we'd say we're not cost, we're don't see it as a cost, see it as something that will help you navigate that, but seeing it from the business owner's perspective, they may see it slightly differently. Within the organisation themselves, we look at I think the leadership coaching will be okay. I think that space will be fine. You mentioned team coaching. Look, the executive coaching, again, that might be shortened, it might be in-housed. I don't know. It's interesting to see. Let's see what happens. Sometimes, it's in-house in a way that the HR community suddenly had to start doing it, and they may not be supported, they may not be qualified in it, they may not be trusted because they're still connected to the organisation. It's interesting to see how that whole world happens, or will exec coaching be again reinfected and protected because certain organisations see the value in it and fundamentally believe in it. I think it will be down to those in the decision-making positions what they just believe and buy into. Yeah, the rise of team, Joan, I agree. It's interesting. I'm thinking the rise of team. For sure, we do a lot of team, love it. I fundamentally love it. I see the shift it can make in an organisation when you're working on a group. Although I'll still say the best execution of team is when you're doing team coaching as well as individual coaching. That's the best, but I'm finding companies making decisions on that already. Let's just focus on that, and we might have team executive coaching for the leader. But we'll see. So interesting challenges that are coming on the community. I think ahead of us, the hybrid, 100%. The hybrid is an interesting thing. I think that as human beings, we love to make a conclusion on things. Okay, I was interested in listening to one of the podcasts by the wonderful Jonathan Passmore. Jonathan made a conclusion it had gone that way. As you said, Joan, I think I've got some clients as well are very comfortable with going hybrid. It works for them. I've got others that are going, please don't do that. Let's just be in the room together, right? So I don't believe, I've got people who happily pay for me to go up, travel around to be in the room with them rather than on the hybrid. But they both have their advantages and disadvantages for sure. It will be interesting to see how that evolves as we try to find an answer to that. Is there an answer? I don't know. I don't know that there really will be an answer. For sure, it's interesting how the technology then breeds or leads into other foibles. So I'm sure most of us are aware that hybrid working has led to people just having back-to-back calls. I mean, just not in time to all right, people go, right, got a great session, fantastic, got to go, boom, no time for it to sink in. And it's just another human foible that's kicked in, that actually we're just squeezing more in, versus the conversation where there are certain businesses, certain leaders who want people in. I want them in. I want to be able to see them. Plus, the office is my domain. It reinforces all the hard effort I put in. And I want to have a kingdom. What's the point of being at home? I've got no kingdom when I'm at home. So, and likewise, they also, the positive is, I want them in because people connect better. So lots of challenges that the coaching community will experience, face, and can certainly help with. I think you mentioned the point on the commoditization of coaching. Interesting. Where's the line between democratizing it and making it a commodity? Don't know. Interesting conversation, I think, to have more conversations around that. Certainly when we started coaching the business, we our angle was about more personal coaching at the low end and making it democratized. Actually, from a business model, it's not necessarily the most efficient way to do it. And we saw organisations cut back on that anyway and go and fine tune it into more senior executives. So most of our contracts we had where it was available to the massive have gone. It's much more targeted. So it's interesting to see whether that comes back or not. I'm just curious around that. So, but the access to it is an interesting thing. We want people to have access to coaching, but we don't want it to be commoditized. Discuss, right? Interesting one. And again, as Angela said, I think all the human things, such as time and how we juggle things, will always be there, be it the coach or be it the coachee. That there are some things that are attached to our human psyche that will continue to pop up regardless of how the world evolves.
Thank you, Adrian, Jane and Angela. It's been just that brief insight in terms of the actual challenges around coaching today has been, almost a snapshot of our time at 20 years. So I'll be interested to see where things are again in 20 years' time.
Can I add to that, Rob, actually?
Please.
And from a profession, the diversity of coaching has to change. It for sure, it's not diverse enough as a profession. And that is a huge hill we have to climb.
Can I just pick up on Adrian's point quickly? Because I think he makes a really good point on the democratization as opposed to the commoditization of coaching. And I really agree with you, Adrian, about making coaching available at different levels in the organization so that it doesn't remain elite. And I think that is different from coaching being treated as a commodity by client organizations. So I just wanted to make that distinction because I think the democratization is a great thing, ethically as well as practically. And how that is treated by our clients and the world in general, I think is an important point and a challenge for the coaching community in different ways.
Jane, do you think the AC should have a position on that?
Not specifically, no, because I think that it comes out of the broad offer. And different people will offer coaching in different areas. I mean, like some people offer life coaching and some people offer coaching to particular. And we've got this wonderful ADHD group, haven't we, just starting up, which I think is fabulous. And that offers coaching to a very specific group of clients. So I don't think the AC should take a position on it, but I think when we're looking at the coaching market and the challenges for coaching going forward, it's just another dimension. But I just wanted to make the distinction between the two things that we were talking about.
And you have done wonderfully. Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that, Jane. And I'm curious, Angela, for you, just based on what Adrian and Jane were saying there, is there anything else we need to be thinking about in terms of perhaps the challenges or maybe some of those themes that have just emerged in the conversation there?
Well, just a couple of things have been occurring to me in the commoditization of coaching is I see a lot more very short coaching sessions. I work with a number of coaches who have like 45-minute sessions, 30-minute sessions, and maybe I'm of my era and this is saying something about my lack of ability to change. But that it feels like it's is that going to continue? I mean, then I was talking about speed coaching earlier when we made it work with 5 minutes. So perhaps this is about me catching up with the change that exists. But I think other coaches also find in being expected to do as much or more in less time. And as Jane rightly said, we are mirroring what's happening with our clients, and I think that is what happens with our clients too. Everyone is expected to do more with less time. The only other, as I had time to reflect on what are the bigger picture challenges we have, I don't know But I'm thinking that, the last big recession that we had, I met so many coaches who said, well, I used to do this, then I got made redundant, so I became a coach. And I'm just wondering what's going to happen to the coaching profession. Are we going to be in for another huge influx of coaches? Are we in danger of getting saturated? Or will we get to a stage where coaches end up being so popular that everyone has a coach? Is that a good thing or not? I don't know. So that's just made me wonder, in terms of the number of coaches that there are right now, what's going to happen in the next couple of years if we're going to be heading for a big recession? Are we going to have more and more people become coaches? And how will the coaching profession support coaches when there's perhaps not that much business out there? So, yeah. And I hadn't thought about that before now. It's just occurring to me now.
Yeah, I think there's possibly an episode or a whole series in just that one question there, in terms of how will the coaching industry support coaches on the other side of a recession. So we'll wait and see. I'm really delighted with the themes and some of the aspects of what's going on in the world of coaching, and really grateful to you all for sort of revealing that. It's been, for me, just listening to you speak there, it's built a really rich picture already of how things have changed and where things are today. And there's quite a number of things, I think, for our listeners to be thinking about there in terms of where coaching is at and where it's going, and what we need to be thinking about for those of us that are interested in coaching. Conscious of our time, and I'd like to begin to bring our conversation today, which has gone very, very quickly for me, to a close, just sort of keeping to the theme of this particular conversation and reflecting on your own experience. I'd be very interested to know a particular highlight, or maybe a small set of highlights for you over the last sort of 20 years. Where have you seen coaching make its biggest impact, or perhaps what's been a profound experience for you as a coach in the last 20 years or so? And within that, what it is about that motivates you to, let's hope, jump out of bed every day to do more coaching.
Okay.
So maybe, Adrian, I could start with you.
Well, over the 20 years, I think if the majority, if not all coaches, feel quite privileged to do what we do, right? I do. I think fundamentally believe it's a privilege to have an impact, be it a tiny one or a big one, on someone thinking, feeling, behaviours, outcomes, outputs that they have to succeed. But yes, I'd say, look, just having impact, seeing other people think, other people grow, be it people, be it coaches, myself, were great. I'd say highlights, if I may, say some A few highlights, I would say would be, I love one of my favourite conferences was the Budapest one. Loved that. That was great. Some time ago, that was very impactful for me, I thought. Likewise, meeting so many wonderful people on the journey, and still meeting them, legends such as Angela, for instance, and Jane, right? Amazing. So it continues to evolve and offer opportunities. So,
piqued my curiosity there. Tell me about the Budapest conference and what it was about that.
Oh, the Budapest was just really good. It was a bit of a gambit to go there to do it internationally, but I think it was really good. I met some wonderful people there, some wonderful conversations that we had there. I thought the thing that really stood for me, not so much just the speakers, but the quality of the interactions that we had, and being it over 2 days, it was just really good to connect and spend time. And look, coaching is an interesting thing. Whether we work with a team or you're an associate, and at the end of the day, it reflects like my athletics career. For those of you who didn't know, right, some time ago, I used to run a bit, and I was an athlete, and I've been fortunate to represent England and Great Britain. But athletics is very similar. You're part of a team, but you deliver individually. And coaching is very similar to that. You can be part of the team, but when you're in it, it's just you and your coach, or you or the team, or it's just you're working individually. Yet actually coaches are very social, connected kind of creatures. So the opportunities, like today, just to connect with other, brilliant minds and have a conversation and connect and stimulate and challenge and agree, it's just wonderful. So, the coaching community has that challenge to continue to support coaches with. And Budapest, that when we get those kind of conferences, people together like that, you get that opportunity.
That's lovely
to do that.
Yeah, I'm curious as to the background of the Budapest conference. Could you just mention what it was?
It was an AC conference. I remember good conversation with Catherine for sure, always there. Philip Wozinski, for sure.
Okay. May I come over to you, Jane? And
Yes, highlights. Of course, there are so many. I think if I were to put a general heading over it, it would be the increased willingness of leaders to look at themselves and understand that their growth comes from within and not just looking at how to tackle tactically certain problems that they're facing. And being part of that journey is, it's a privilege. I think that word's already been used this afternoon, and very rewarding. And by extension, teams increasingly prepared to do the same thing, to look at how they work together and tackle some quite tricky issues amongst themselves, and then watch them flourish. It's tremendous. And as an extension of that, I've got involved in some of the adult development theory work and helping people adjust their sense making to be able to deal with more complex issues is something that I enjoy very much. I think I've also been blessed to be part of a group with my Priester colleagues of really top quality professionals. And as Adrian said, we work alone, really. Our coaching is done on our own, and having a community of like-minded coaches to stimulate thinking, to support, has been wonderful. And that has been a real highlight of my journey too.
that's lovely. Thanks, Jane. And Angela?
After my mind went blank, two thoughts came to me, and here they are. The first was a highlight for me, I suppose, at a wider scale, have been the absolute plethora of books that now exist on coaching. So, 20 years ago, there was about one small shelf of dedicated books around coaching. I could probably, name them on one hand, the books that were around at the time. And I got involved in writing some books over the years, and I am a bookworm, so books are my fascination. And now there are just so many books. It's amazing that there are still so many more, I'm sure, being written and will come out. And I do occasionally get involved in looking at proposals for books, not with the AC, but just generally. And again, the idea, the different ways that people can think about writing about coaching is amazing. So that is a personal highlight for me, that there is so much available now to read about coaching. So that's one. The other one, this came to me first, Rob, is a very personal highlight. Last Christmas, I got a Christmas card from a lady. I recognised the name. It was somebody that I coached probably about 10-15 years before she sent that Christmas card last year. Obviously, this is a true story, so I can't say too much. But what I will say is that this was business coaching. This was a lady who was already running a business, but had an idea for a very, very different and unique kind of business that I can't say because I feel I would be betraying confidentiality, because it is quite unique. But anyway, what's a highlight for me is that I worked with her. I did about 6 coaching sessions. We started, we went through the middle, and we finished. I wished her well, and the coaching came to an end. And I moved on. And hadn't really thought about her much over the years. But all these years later, she sends me this Christmas card to say, Happy Christmas, and by the way, I am now living that vision. I set that business up, it's working, I'm doing it, thank you so much. And, just to get that card was so, so wonderful. Yeah, very special. And she might well one day listen to this recording, so if she does, thank you for the card.
That's wonderful. That's a lovely story, Angela, and thank you for sharing that. And you remind me of the ripple effect of coaching there. Sometimes we find out the impact and the effect that it has. Oftentimes we don't, but it's glimpses like that can keep you going, isn't it? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, as we bring our conversation to a close now, I'd like to invite each of you to share with our listener where they can perhaps get in touch with you. But before we do that, I was just wondering if there's any sort of final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listener. And perhaps whilst I'm speaking to you, Angela, may I ask you first if there's anything else you'd like to share in context of our conversation today with our listener? Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I've really enjoyed. It's been a trip down memory lane for me. As I say, I loved your questions. They've got me thinking about things and my journey as a coach, and how the AC has supported that over the years has been really lovely to reflect on. So thank you.
Yeah, again, it's difficult to add more than what Angela just said, really. Yeah, it's been lovely to reflect and think about things, and think about how I've evolved, how Pressure Point of the business has evolved, the people I've worked with have evolved, how the clients and coaches have evolved, and the impact that coaching itself has on people, which is great. Something, who'd have thought it could be so impactful for people. And hearing stories like that, Angela, absolutely, people really remember it. Even when once we've forgotten, we've moved on, it's left this mark, an indelible mark on people, and who will still go back and say, that little moment in my life, that satellite that hit this meteorite and nudged me slightly 10 degrees to the left, that nudging was really significant in my life. Thank you. And I think that's a wonderful thing to have. So thank you for that share, Angela. It's brilliant. So look, coaching, as you said right at the beginning, Rob, it's a brilliant thing. We get up, I don't know any coach who says, oh, I'm coaching today, oh my God. We get up with this energy. I'm great. I'm seeing such and such today. Seeing how they've got on or where they're at. This is great. We're living it. We love it. And yes, we've got they're businesses, so we've got to juggle that aspect of it. But it's a wonderful community to be part of, and we've got a long journey to make it, universally brilliant in its execution, and we've got a long way to make it brilliant in its accessibility and its diversity, and it never stands still. So this has been great. It's lovely to have time with you guys, but it's still exciting and excited with what's in store for the industry, just regardless of the external forces that are going to smack us in the face. But we'll pull through.
Lovely final thoughts there. Thank you, Adrian. And Jane, how about you?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? We talk about the journey travelled and what we see coming up. And so for us too, there's a journey still to go, isn't there? And we'll have to walk our talk as coaches and continue to develop ourselves and be there for our clients however they show up and whatever the context is we're working in. So there'll be exciting times ahead, I think, as well.
I'm sure there's no doubt about that. So that's a lovely sentiment. Thank you, Jane. And just for our listener who might be interested to learn more about you and the coaching work that you do, Jane, if I could ask you, where can our listener reach out to you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, of course. I'm with Preister, and so you can find me through the Preister website or at my email, which is jane.upton@preister.com.
That's perfect. Thanks. Would you like to spell that for our listener, just in case?
Yes, that's Praesta.
That's lovely. And we'll make sure that all the links and resources mentioned in this episode will be on the show notes that accompany this episode on associationforcoaching.com. And how about you, Adrian?
Yeah, again, for listeners who want to reach out to me, you can either go through the AC, which is Adrian at associationforcoaching.com, or you can go to my business website, which is www.pressure-points.com, or again, as Jane said, you can easily track me down on LinkedIn.
Great, thanks. And Angela?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a good one, isn't it? So if you remember the name, I'm on LinkedIn. It's a really good way of just getting in touch, or through my business website, hopefully fairly easy to remember, cleancoaching.com, and you can contact me at angela@cleancoaching.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Rob.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Nice
Rob,
to meet you both, Angela and Adrian.
Nice to meet you two legends.
Yeah, really nice connecting with all of you today. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another podcast by the Association for Coaching. I'm Rob Lawrence. For 20 years, the AC's purpose has been to inspire and champion coaching excellence, advance the coaching profession, and make a sustainable difference to individuals, organisations, and societies worldwide. To find out more about the Association for Coaching and our member benefits, follow us on LinkedIn or explore our website at associationforcoaching.com. You can keep up to date with our latest podcast episodes, enjoy the wealth of digital learning offerings, and gain insights from our Coaching Perspectives magazine.